Hello, everybody. It's Brian. It's Friday. Hello, everybody. I'm trying to remind myself to start watching the YouTube chat at the same time I'm watching the the chat for Twitch because we're actually starting to get people who are chatting in the live chat for YouTube, which unfortunately for YouTube followers and VOD watchers on YouTube, you don't get to see the live chat like you do with Twitch, which is kind of unfortunate. I mean, unless you see a little tag down at the bottom, but yeah, it's Friday, and so art imitating life. We have a guest, Jared Freitas, who has been on the show a couple times before. Known him for a long time. Oh my God, known him since I lived in Austin. So that is going on about almost 12, 15 years now. Yeah, when he he was the internal red team or pen test team at the place where me and Mr. Betcher worked, and met him because he was brought in because their guy that they normally used was gone, and so new person. He walked us through doing pen tests, doing a review of our systems, and just got to know him generally, and good person, very good person. And we're going to have Jared on in a couple of weeks to talk about some threat modeling, but that came up today at work, and it was something that I wanted to talk about, and he'll be on in a couple of weeks, but I just to, I don't know, prime the pump, if you will, for this, I was looking through some resources that are out there for people who want to do threat modeling. And of course, there's, I would say, a good number of them. And welcome to everybody who's here. Thank you for the viewers. Thank you for the lurkers, team lurkers. You know what I'm saying? Also would like to thank Cyber Centurion for following. Someone named Unknown User, that might be the person that I banned last Tuesday. God damn it, we are WIR. And Utmost Stan, thank you so much for following and for subscribing and doing your Amazon Prime subscription gaming stuff. And I do apologize in advance for any ads. Those are not ads that I have. Those are Twitch ads, so that they can be profitable and continue to allow us to stream. So if you want to support us in some other way, we have a Patreon. We have a you can support us by doing something else on if you don't want to use Twitch or what have you. So all right. Yeah. So, for those of you, we've had folks like Adam Shostak on, and, others doing things like threat modeling and trying to walk through the threat modeling process. But I would say for somebody like myself who deals with a lot of product teams, threat modeling is not necessarily something they think of, because threat modeling is the what could go wrong, the what ifs. This is the risk that isn't realized, right? And for product teams whose sometimes their livelihood depends on putting out a product that it doesn't suck, or putting out a product that because market forces tell us that floating toilet seats are going to be the new hotness, and they want to put out a floating toilet seat. A lot of times they don't ask the what if questions. What if this happens, or what if this system is compromised, or we're sending data from A to B, and are we doing it? They don't care about the how. They just want to collect that data. They don't care about the how or the why, and it gets there. They're going to collect that data. If it's over an HTTP connection using basic auth on a website with no HTTPS, they're going to do it because that's how they make their product work, right? So one of the things that we're going to talk about with Jared is, there's different ways of doing it. A lot of people have there's different camps, right, on how these go about happening, and there's different ways of doing threat modeling in terms of things like system architecture or when this happens in the process. Some people do it later, some people do it earlier, some people do it right when they're doing the business proposal. It depends on when your company or when your organization brings threat modeling in. So for those, we lost 3 viewers. I wonder if they were like, oh, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. And then, or maybe they're lurking. So, welcome. So I'm going to put the question out to everybody here, and let me add it in here. When do you threat model? And I'm going to ask that question. When do you threat model? Do you threat model, it doesn't have to be a product thing. Maybe your threat modeling is, hey, we're starting up a new project, we're a new initiative, we're going to put, these controls in. And one of the things that I think we don't think about a lot is, oh, you're here? Well, all right, well, you can get up here. Come on. There we go. I have to do the magic fingers. Yeah. Yeah. All right, well, you're semi-famous again. Yeah, every time. Meow. Meow. Wow. Wow. See, I'm a white hat, so I have to have a white cat. White cat, white hat. That's the way it goes, right? Right? No? Wow. New project or system upgrade. Yeah, that's good. When my threat fit is on point, I walk the threat runway. Oh, yeah. On the catwalk, yeah. Yes, this is my mama kitty. Yes, I weighed her today with me, and so far she is holding at 7 pounds, which is she's a little on the light side. I can feel her bones. So we're trying to put some meat on her bones. So Monk Duck, you say new project or system upgrade. No, we talked about this. Is that how it's going to be? Is that how it's going to be? Well, as long as you're not showing your chocolate starfish, that's fine. Why no BreakSec kitty emote? I don't know. Digital Warhead, find one and post it up into Slack, and I will add it as an emote there. So Monk Duck, we'll start with you since you were the first to reply. Do teams search you out at your organization when a new project is happening or a system upgrade? Those are two different things requiring potentially two different systems. But it's funny with the idea of we need to put in a new IPS or IDS or some sort of star EDR, whether it be XDR, NDR, EDR, I don't know, Uber EDR, whatever it is. Those are identified technologies that are supposed to reduce risk based on threats that we've identified, right? Or is it just we're a company, so we have to have EDR, right? Just joined, need your step, your emo. Yes, Digital, I completely agree. You haven't just joined. You've been here for a couple weeks. Forced due to policies, otherwise they'd run a mile. Okay. Do you find because they're forced, are they your policies, your company's policies, or are they compliance-based policies? Like, PCI has certain requirements, HIPAA has certain requirements. NERC probably has some specific requirements too. NERC being the Nuclear Energy Regulatory Commission. Yeah, I like the Qbert one. The Qbert one's fun. I like that one. That come from Wreck-It Ralph. My question is, if people are forced to do threat modeling, to invest in, those things, the big problem I have with threat modeling is, and let me see, how do I say this? It's supposed to be something that helps you reduce risk, but let's say a firewall, for instance. You have 100% risk, like let's say you have a critical risk, you have no firewall. What does a firewall mitigate, right? The idea is it's supposed to create some sort of separation between your internal network and world plus dog, right? Let's say the risk is realized. You've had an issue because you didn't have a firewall. You have a firewall now. How much does that reduce the risk? The firewall, it will mitigate certain things. Oh, mostly compliance, but built into the company management system. Okay. And that's great. If you're not doing it because of compliance, that's awesome. That means your company from on high, like way up here, starting at the board level or the CEO or whoever, has mandated those things, or mandated because the CISO mandated them, or the CSO mandated them, what have you. But it's coming hopefully from on high that there's a requirement that this has to happen, which is great. It's not, you're not being forced because of HIPAA told us to, or PCI told us to, or NERC told us to, or what have you. NIST is not a compliance requirement; it's a framework, so there's no compliance there. But my problem with it is, you're going to spend $100,000, just throwing out numbers there, for a firewall, and it's going to reduce your risk by what? At this point, you might as well say it's going to reduce your risk by purple, right? You can't say, well, it's going to reduce it by 20%. It's going to reduce certain types of risks, and I guess what you need to figure out in many cases. Mandate don't always come with a budget, though. Exactly, digital, 100%. Where are you going? You want to get down? You want to get down? No? I appreciate you because you're helping me pace myself so I don't, overthink things, or, I don't cause any issues. You're a threat, Every time you get up on my desk, you cause threats, or you realize risk. You're realized risk. But anyway, so when we invest in technology, when we get our EDR, obviously somebody wants to see a rate of return, a rate on investment, or rate of return. Yeah, Cat is a liability. No, she's not a liability. I love her. Mom Kitty, where are you going? I think she's done with me. So they want to see a return on investment, and it's hard sometimes, I think, for security people to go, that's, this is the investment. There's the customer is not going to see a benefit. Things like EDR is mostly for security's benefit, right? It's reducing risks, but yeah, how to calculate risk? How do you calculate that risk? The quantifiable stuff, it's like, if I go to, well, okay, so I brought this question up at one point. So let's say you go to Texas, and you go to Brownsville, Texas. Let's say brand new job in Brownsville, Texas, and somebody's like, oh, we need to do a risk assessment of whatever. And, I have never lived in Brownsville, Texas. I came from, Anchorage, Alaska, for instance. And, they're like, you need to create a risk assessment. Okay, I'm going to take what I know. I'm going to get it down here, and I'm going to be like, okay, Brownsville, Texas, I have to secure this data center, and there's certain, let's say I'm getting to the weather part, right? And I say, okay, well, the chances of, a hurricane, oh yeah, Texas gets hit by hurricanes a lot. Let's say it's 80% of, the summertime is going to be hurricanes. I'm just pulling this out of my ass. I don't have any good numbers here, right? Blizzards. Oh yeah, Brownsville probably, I wouldn't know how many blizzards, but I'm thinking it's a very hot place, so it must be a lower rank. I may have information based on my own personal experience, which may not necessarily translate to a good risk reduction. So I may say, we need to winterize the data center. Well, why do we need to winterize the data center? That's the problem I have with. Yes, I'd start by evaluating all the expensive breakable stuff you have on shelves. Yeah, thankfully she can't get up there. The biggest problem I have with her is she does like to knock things off my desk or chew on things. But so when we try to quantify risk, because there's qualitative and quantitative, the percentage of chances needs to be based on something other than our own opinions. That's the problem that I have with a lot of things where people want to put in a security control. I'm like, well, what does it solve? If it was like the fire triangle, so you have something to burn, which you have material, you have oxygen, and you have something to cause heat, right? So in this case, a match. So if I have all three of those things, I have a pretty good idea that I'm going to make fire. So if I have a match, or let's say a road flare, just make sure it's near 100%. If I can light a road flare, I've got oxygen, I've got something to burn, and I have a road flare, which is burning magnesium or God knows what. If I have those three things, my risk of having fire is near 100%. As long as and I would say if you go square, it'd be like a person to light the flare or whatever. If I take away any one of those things from that triangle, I'm not going to have a fire, right? I may have one temporarily because of the flare, but it will eventually go out. And if I take away the oxygen, it won't burn at all. Right? If we're in space, no fire, right? We take away the things to burn, the flare will burn until there's nothing left and it dies. Fire, exactly the word. So one of the things that I'm trying to think about at work is we have devices. So let's say this battery, right? And we're designing a new battery, and this is what it's supposed to look like at the end, right? There's components inside, right? Your fitness watches, your wireless mice, your phones, they all have components in them, right? They got chips, they have radios, they have software, they have libraries, involved with the software, and you make a threat model for a phone, right? And how granular do you want to get with that? The problem that I've got is right now is granularity, right? I could say, do I treat the phone as one thing, or how down deep should I get? Dumpster fires, yes, dumpster fires are definitely a thing. So we're brainstorming things like components, and it's like we could get down to I think we have like chips, we have OS, we have and we're like 10,000 feet up right now. It's like and my ass brain here is like, okay, well, we make a lot of products, we have a lot of different chipsets, right? And it's like, do we want to say, okay, say we use a Broadcom chip, I'm not saying we do we want a specific threat model for that Broadcom chip? Or do we want to say, okay, across our entire chipset numbers, whatever, if we've got a Qualcomm chip and a TI chip and a Broadcom chip and a Raylink chip and an Atheros chip and an Intel chip, and they're all wireless chips. Let's say they're all wireless chips. Do we want a threat model for all wireless chips? Or do we want to have individual threat models for the Qualcomm chip, the Broadcom chip, the Atheros chip, the Raylink chip, the Intel chip, the Buffalo chip, or what have you? And are there specific threats for each one of those, or is it just the same threats apply for all? That's some of the issues that I've been dealing with. And he actually, I had a link. One sec. A friend of mine sent it to me. One of my coworkers sent it to me. Said that NIST has specific kind of threat vector things. We're going to go and look on NIST's website for these things. But what I found interesting is, and then you get into, well, what kind of threat modeling do you want to do? Do you want to do STRIDE, which, is what's considered the gold standard for everybody to use Stride, but that doesn't necessarily translate well for a lot of different things. Let's see, what is it? Pages. I know she's not giving me shit now. .gov/ the mobile threat catalog. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so we're gonna look at mobile stuff more than anything else. There we go. Okay, live chat. Yes, there we go. Oh, live chat. There we go. All right. So, for service continuity and anyone in the UK, there's the National Risk Register 2023 with 89 risks that you can use. Has expected likelihoods, but obviously worked out for a nation. So the UK has 89 risks. Okay, that's interesting. Okay. So this is the one that got sent to me, and this is publicly available, so it's not like I'm sending out anything of note. What is this? Sons of bitches. Interesting. Okay, I need to get. Okay, I'm not at work anymore. Leave me alone. Hey, Cybercoster, welcome back. Hope you found value in some of the discussions we had last week. So this mobile threat catalog has guidance for securing certain types of mobile devices. And there's other ones as well. Pages.nist.gov. I put that one in there too. CATS is a threat model. Yes, exactly. CATS have a lot of moving pieces. And where is it? Software carpentry. That's not what I was looking for. I was looking at threat model. Oh, okay. So you got details here. They talk about the various scopes. A portable computing device, a small form factor carried by an individual may operate without a physical connection. Has onboard sensors. So yeah, we were talking about all kinds of things. She can jump on keyboards. She tends to not do that though. She'll kind of just sit right here or sit in my lap. Let's see, mobile devices. So attack surface, technology stack. So yeah, they break this down into different things depending on how small you want to get, right? So the hardware, you've got application and processor and memory, baseband processors and memory security modules, peripherals, SIMs, cameras, etc. So, and then you have firmware. So you have initialization code, bootloaders, device drivers, application sandboxes, kernel. So it kind of almost goes up like an OSI model, or the TCP/IP model, which is, from what I understand, the more correct version to use these days. So they talk about touch. Oh, so yeah, also includes peripherals like touchscreens, audio interfaces, high definition video cameras, connectors. So your USB-C connector will do power, it'll do data, it'll do video. Cool. So yeah, there's a ton of stuff that comes through these mobile threat catalogs to kind of help you identify. There we go. Bring your own device. Where is it? Security guidance. By technology. So yeah, they've broken these DevSecOps. Security practices. Yes. That's not what I was looking for. Come on, damn you. Oh, so project descriptions. Anyway, so NIST has a bunch of these documents available for various security guidances, critical security hygiene, 1800, SP 800. Okay. So, one of the things that I was trying to figure out was how to. One of the things we have to do is take the components, take either stride or some kind of process, seriously, and then break down certain controls that could be put into, if you don't have this, then you can put this mitigation in place. And my question to them was, and it's one of the reasons that I'm asking today, is what takes, when you're reducing a threat, what is the percentage that you can say, okay, this is 100% mitigated, or is 100% mitigated actually mitigated? Is there still other things, and what is good enough? One of the tried applying for government jobs because of family overseas. They told me security clearance will take months. Yes, that is one problem with security clearances. I think the important thing is, I would say with security clearances there, cyber, that it depends on, I think, where your family is, right? I would say if you have cousins in North Korea, might be a problem. If you have cousins in one of the Five Eyes countries, maybe not such a big problem. Yeah, that depends on which part of the Middle East, I think. But the important thing is just to disclose that, and if the company doesn't want to have to go through all that rigmarole, then you're gonna have some issues, right? Adam Showstack, 4 questions, and I think that's the frame that we've got for Showstack's 4 questions for threat modeling, which I think my friend had suggested, another one of my friends had suggested he come in and talk about what are we working on, what can go wrong, what are we going to do about it, and did we do a good job? So he has a threat modeling designing for security. I actually have his card game that he has out. Depends on the employer and how important that information. 100% cyber. That's the data-driven part of what NIST is trying to bring in. So data-driven threat modeling. And that's what 800-154 is all about, data-centric threat modeling system. The overarching idea is the crown jewels are your information, your what you need to protect in the long run. There is a document here talks about some of that data-centric threat modeling system. I actually see Karen Scarfoni still lives in Clifton, Virginia. It might be worth seeing if Karen would get on and discuss about that in the future. They go through some attack and defense basics. They give you some definitions. Software flaw is an error in the design or coding of software. Security configuration issues, software feature misuse or vulnerability. I'm pretty sure executive positions assign policies or what you should do in that situation. They assign policy. Well, I mean, that's why you have an incident response plan. That's why you have policies, procedures, your playbooks, that kind of thing. So let me see. Yeah, various attack vectors. So, this is definitely a way of doing threat modeling based on where your data is, how it sits, and what controls are in place around it. This is where you would also add threat minimization as a potential mitigation. Do you need to collect that data? Do you need to collect that data and store it? Do you need to collect and store that for infinity? Or is it a set amount of time? Is it something where you can collect it, process it into something that is not useful? So you get things like tokenization inside of your... so cyber for PCI compliance, things like logs have to be kept for a certain amount of time, but you don't have to keep credit card information. You do that because it's a better experience for your users to check that box and save the data for next time. There are controls around that where you can tokenize those numbers so that they are less useful. The best thing to do is just to not store that information at all, or to store it in such a way, like I said, with tokenization, where even if they did dump your database, they don't get any real information. Problem is, it's costly, it takes a lot of time. Sometimes you trying to implement that on the back end after you've got 3 million credit card numbers doesn't make a lot of sense, because there's a lot of time and effort involved. Usually tokenized, yes, tokenized and hashed, or put in something that makes them less useful if somebody dumps those. And yet we still have credit card dumps, or people's credit card information being taken. We see that with a lot of retailers that have been hit. Oh, nothing was taken of note. Oh, well, maybe credit card information, maybe your passwords, maybe all those things. There's always some database somewhere that was missed, and that's where you get your top 20 controls. The idea with those is you're mitigating risk by having those things in place, knowing where your information is stored, knowing what is storing your information, understanding who has access to that kind of stuff. But yeah, so yeah, introduction to data centered. The one thing I don't like about these white pages, they rarely have, diagrams and things in them. So they give an example scenario here. The data of interest is a spreadsheet containing PII for employees who've received workers' compensation. Now, spreadsheet is really just a flat database. So this would be a database. You could also say this is a database containing PII for workers' compensation. System of interest comprises the HR person's laptop, so where the database is stored or the spreadsheet is stored. USB flash drive, could be a tape drive or something where the database or spreadsheet is backed up. And a printer, because people like to print that spreadsheet for whatever reason. MFA also helps. Yes, MFA is definitely a risk mitigator or reducer. Again, there's some cost involved, or implementation, with your back-end systems doesn't always work, but that's definitely something you could suggest they employ. It's not a non-zero lift, so it may not work well. And as we've seen, it's not without its own risks. I think one thing we forget about in that case is putting in controls to mitigate risk over here actually introduces other risk over here. So putting all of your MFA implementation into Okta, for instance, Okta gets popped. They're a third party, so technically, you run into issues. So you're playing whack-a-mole sometimes with the trade-offs. It's like, okay, by implementing this, we fix this, but we've introduced this. Like, what is it? When they introduced like rabbits in Australia, they decided, well, we'll just bring in this, snake, because this snake eats the rabbits. Well, it doesn't always do that. Well, then we need to bring in this dog that can kill his snake that, is eating the rabbits. And it's like, well, the dog doesn't actually like that dog, So they made a lot of mistakes back in like colonial times when they were first settling Australia, where they brought in like the dogs, and then now they're wild dogs. And then, so you need to protect your data, so we're going to put it in an EDR, but the EDR is managed by somebody over here that gets popped that can turn off all the EDRs, and then now you're back to the same thing. So it's a chain of shit sometimes. So they say authorized location for the data of interest. You've got storage, so you have transmission, you have execution environment, you have input and output. Best practices need to be applied in every part of your chain. Who establishes best practices, Cybercoster? Is it just, that's one thing that I've always asked the question of. It's like, who established that we needed firewalls? Firewalls are just a thing that everybody needs to have, right? Because, yeah. But by that policies, by that extension, that means that every company has to adopt the same policies and the same best practices, and they obviously don't, because everybody's risks are different. Everybody's processes are different. Everybody's stack is different, so they all can't implement the same policies. We do have some, security has had we harped on passwords for years. Have harder passwords, have more difficult passwords because of blah. And now it's like companies are like, yay, we've implemented hard passwords. Yeah, now we need to go to MFA. It just took us 15 years to get, 8 characters, upper, lower number, and special. Well, yeah, but you took too long. It's like that goalpost keeps moving, right? Our best practices keep moving because we can't, they move at a snail's pace, and the attackers are already like bypassing MFA. So it's like, you've got companies that are like, yay, now we have MFA, and they're like, yeah, now you're shit out of luck. It's it's no good now. You've screwed the pooch. It's like you took 15 years to get MFA in now, and it's already been bypassed, right? Or we use SMS MFA. Well, NIST says it's bad. Well, why does NIST say it's bad? Because it's SIM swapping is happens, and it's like, well, okay, but SIM swapping happens onesie twosie, right? So far I have not seen any attack where somebody said, hey, I'm able to compromise thousands of phone numbers at scale. And in terms of tech stack or user experience, mostly everybody has a cell phone, so that makes it easy to implement something like SMS. And it's really what you want to, what you want to accept in terms of risk. If you're worried about one person having their SIM swapped and they get their account owned, you just have to deal with that, right? And so I think we tend to focus too much on things that will bring down risk, period. But because we're not turning it up to 11, like, oh, you must have, everyone must run around with a fucking YubiKey. Why? They're great. Not everybody uses them. Not everybody needs them. And, everybody needs a password locker because it's the best practice. Why? I don't know. Anyway. Yeah, it was just something that came up today. Threat modeling is complicated. And I don't want to spend all the time talking about that because in a couple of weeks we're going to be one second. Let me go back to just me because I want to see when we're having Jared on. I do so enjoy talking to him about these things. Is it oh man, it's the 25th. We got like 2 weeks. Oh, okay. 25th. Maybe we can get Stuart on a lot sooner than that. Maybe. This weekend is the big game. There's also a balance that needs to be achieved to make it easy to use and also secure while not affecting performance. The new answer is passkeys. Does it make things super easy? Ensuring trust in a company is essential to maintaining good relations with the client. One data breach and stocks fall short. It is being adopted by a lot, but does it need to be adopted by everybody in a company or just the important people in the company? How do you verify, does everybody in the company need a passkey? If your network is set up correctly, no. Does everybody need email in a company? Oh God, executives are probably not the right people for that. I've been at companies where like the chief executive officer still has access to the source code of a company, and you're not a small company anymore, and at some point the CEO does not need access to that. There's, if your network is set up correctly, your people at the greeters at the front desk that make sure visitors get badged in don't have access to World Plus Dog, does not have access to the company secrets. Maybe things like external email. Some people do not need to receive external email from their email address. there's certain things that can, yeah, it's kind of a pain in the ass, but does your lead developer or head of engineering need to have external email? And you have, this is the, I love the conversation, Cyber. You bring up a lot of good points. My problem as I've continued to work in this industry is we tend to not give a shit about the customer experience, just as long as we're putting in the things that we think make people secure. And when you tell everybody, hey, you need a password locker, and you need a pass key, and you need MFA, and you need, there's a reason you have people that try to get around your threats, or your not your threats, but the stuff in place. That's why we joke about winter 2024 or summer 2024, bang, or what have you. They don't use the password lockers because they're not convenient. They're not a good work experience. I remember having to carry around an RSA token, and then I was like, wow, I've got soft tokens on my phone. What an amazing invention. Passkeys are nice to replace passwords and offer 2FA, but I'll be honest, it can be a pain to always have the key on you. Yes, 100%. And if you leave it in your desk, if you leave it at your desk, if you're, God forbid, one of those poor suckers that have to be in a building and return to work, what if you leave your passkey sitting in your laptop? Are you supposed to take that home with you every night? What if you lose it? What if you're taking your laptop with you and, you've got one of those mini USB keys that fit into the small slot? You've essentially given somebody your pass key if they've taken your laptop. Are you going to take that out every time you put it in? It's kind of a pain in the ass. Like having to run out to my, I even find my 2FA that I use on my phone for Google Auth kind of painful, because if I'm not sitting near my phone and I need to authenticate to something like Google or Amazon or Microsoft or whatever, my 6-digit code's like across the hallway, and I'm like, okay, I've got to get up. I got to go get my phone. Pain in the ass. I do find it painful sometimes. One reason that I have this YubiKey is because it has my login for my computer. If I lost this key, I couldn't log into my computer. That would be a bad day for me. It's a 25 character password or something that I have to change every year, but I would have to type that 25 character password in multiple times, and I just find that that's a lot easier to do. No, I hear you, Cyber, and that's a lot of that is sometimes our disconnect with things like your SysPs or your SEC pluses. They tell you what an ideal situation is. People are not ideal. People will do whatever they can to get the work done, and if they're bypassing process, security, I'm sure, tells them to do that, but we implement things that actually increase our risk because we think that that's the secure way, and the secure way actually introduces more risk than benefit. Me not showing up fashionably late. Yes, Beta Wolf, you are very much late. I will not dock your pay this time, but we'll have to talk about that. I'll have to put you in PIP, streaming PIP, if you will. How's everything going with you? You doing okay? Oh, Beta Wolf, this is not security related, but if you're looking for things and you're a bit of a geek like myself, I'm still getting shit for people. Where is it? Here we go. Nerd Garden. So this is Beta Wolf's site, Nerd Garden. He's got his printer at home and he's printing out things. So he has Bounty Hunter from Space. No. It's called Bounty Hunter from Space. And Bounty Hunter from Space 2. Not to be confused. No. Not that one. Shh. Nope. It's not that. And these are, nope. They're not those either. These are pocket keycap Powells. So yeah, they're not those. They look like it, but they're not. But yeah, if you're interested, you know, he's got a front site here, and he's doing a little side gig. So I'm gonna give him a little love. He's not sponsoring the show. Checks in the mail, I'm sure. But you know, he's printing up a bunch of stuff. You know, they're there. Powell World, yeah. And he also takes commissions. So if you have an STL or you have an idea for something, he could probably gen something up for you if you'd like. So go check that out. Just, you know. But yeah, it's interesting. Some of the things we try to implement actually causes us to take on more risk. So, you know, if you've got, you know, next week, all developers are going to have to use YubiKeys to sign their code, and you're going to have resistance. And why do we do that? Because it's the way we want to implement it doesn't fit with their workflow. And it feels like sometimes we don't actually take into account what our security controls will actually affect. I had a meeting with somebody the other day, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we're going to go ahead and do this." And I was like, "Did you talk to that team before you decided that we were going to do that?" I was like, do you know if they're okay and on board with those things? And they're like, "Well, you know, we have this policy and it says da da da." And I'm like, "That's not what I asked. My question was, is that team going to do that?" "Well, we have a policy." It was it. Didn't ask that question. So finally, we managed to, you know, get to the crux of the problem, that we need to implement that. But sometimes we don't think about timelines. We don't think about who it's going to affect, and not who's it going to affect, but who's it going to affect downstream. Anyway, so sometimes, you know, my job as a senior security TPM is to get the team that it's going to affect, and that's where identifying stakeholders is going to be, identify affected parties, get them on there and go, "Hey, we want to do this because of specific policy. How's that going to affect you?" And sometimes it's a big stink. Sometimes it's like, well, okay. And once in a while you actually get the, "Hey, wow, this is great. We really should implement this." And so, you know, you end up, you know, that's where you get with like change management procedures and things. You know, you bring awareness and desire and knowledge and you know, reinforcement of those items. And yeah, that's where I started, you know, not just working here, but, you know, I realized that I was actually doing things that was causing me to take on more risk. And the risk is your own people internally not accepting it and doing whatever they need to do, which would be sometimes skirting the system to, you know, if you're not supposed to store files locally, hey, everything's supposed to go up into this, you know, really secure file system. Well, if it's, you know, requires you to type in a URL somewhere and, you know, do a bunch of cumbersome things, they're going to do that about 3 times, and they're like, "Yeah, this is a pain in the ass. I'm going to go back to the way I was doing it before." And so you really didn't gain anything, and you've actually hurt yourself, because they're like, "Well, security doesn't give a shit about me." You know, they didn't even ask me if, you know, this was realistic for us. So we can often, by thinking we're going to reduce risk here, we're actually going to increase risk here, and it causes problems. So, yeah. Oh, this is a good GitHub page. I don't know if I put the Adam Showstack stuff in there, but we can add that too. There was also a friend of mine, Dr. Crispin Cowan, threat modeling. This may actually be on archive.org. Let me go see. Where is it? Did he actually make it? He did, didn't he? Okay. Sorry. Here we go. You can trust. Okay. Interesting. All right. So this is Dr. Cowan. He's a friend of mine. Yes. There we go. So Cyber, let me ask you a question. How did you get good with the devs? What did you do to help doing that? Because you want to be the security guy that they don't go, oh my God, what's he gonna do to ruin my day? If you can have that kind of relationship where you're like, working with them, helping them understand that you care about them, and that you're willing to work with them to make it happen. That's important. So there's a video about Dr. Crispin, who at the time I think worked at Leviathan with me. He was my buddy, my carpool buddy. He invented the stat canary. So for those of you, yes, in 1998 as a professor, he published my bad. So in 1998, as a professor, he published a StatGuard paper coining the term stat canary, which now nearly all computer platforms. And he also founded Immunix, which built AppArmor and the Linux security modules interface. So he has the deep knowledge of the Linux. But now he's went on to work at other places. But yeah, so actually I show up on there. Cool, that's nice. He wrote a paper for a blog post that I had at Leviathan. Security threat modeling. I wonder if they still have it on there. The calculus of threat modeling. Okay. It was an interesting one. Just a very active player and always loved their work. Okay. Well, I mean, that's always good if, developers are, if you are interested in their work and you can help them, be faster or, put out more updates or what have you. That's always good. And, helping them, I don't want to say work around them, but, make sure that security is, for me, shift left isn't always security's got to, make sure that they're there. The developers also have to be accommodating to wanting to do security. So it's not so much for me a shift left. It's more like a come to the middle, or more of a negotiation thing. I remember that. Yeah. Wait. I remember seeing this on Dr. Crispy's wall near his desk all the time, talking about the concept of security principles and attack surfaces. Yes, what are we doing? What can you do about it? This is actually a fairly evergreen topic if you want to actually print this one off or what have you. So he has a... tyranny doesn't work. Yeah. Well, security with an iron fist doesn't work either. And I would say the only time where people should actually kind of shut up and listen is when you're in the middle of a crisis. Like if there is a legitimate, issue there with incident response or what have you, then there's a legitimate point where it's like, hey, do what I say to reduce the bleeding or what have you. But there's definitely, you should still leverage those people during things like incident response because they know their system. So when you say, hey, I need to turn this off now, and they're, well, but we're going to do this. There may come a point where it's like, yeah, you need to kill that system, or you need to, make sure that it's somewhat legit. All ports deny outbound, no hack simple. Yeah. Inbound and outbound, that kind of thing. Yeah. So yeah, there's for me what I'm trying to figure out is how, going back to the threat model stuff, is how granular we want to be with this, because it can get real ugly and real, like, right down into the minutia and maybe it's a bit of both. In some places we want to be like super, like, right down into it, and like, this certain chipset has this certain problem. Because we've heard about it from the CVE, or this has a known issue that we can't fix, or and then you might end up going, it's a phone. This is the things you can do with a phone, You can, or it's a mouse. These are the things you can do with a mouse. Whereas you might get down into the RF band, the Bluetooth radio inside the mouse that has this thing. So I guess it really just depends on what kind of threat model you're trying to create. Especially for products and things like that. But for networks and stuff, like new projects, like what Monk was talking about, with new projects, I guess it depends on, what kind of data you're collecting, what you're planning on doing with the data, and that's where the data-centric stuff comes in. Is like, where are you storing that data? Is it like, do you start with where the data is going to be stored and then build out from there? Kind of, like a middleware thing. With web apps, you've got your front end, your application layer, your database. That's typical three layer web app. Newer architectures make that less of an ideal condition, but it's just something I've had to been thinking about the last couple of days, because a lot of different projects are kind of colliding for me. We're not even allowed to use mobile hotspot at work, neither personal nor work phone, USB tethering only. Is that because, well, I guess the tethering on your phone, if you're using Wi-Fi tethering, that would be an open access point, right? So yeah, USB tethering kind of makes sense in certain places. I mean, when I worked in a skiff, I couldn't have anything that could transmit going in with me. I had to leave my computer outside. Accidentally walked around with a Bluetooth. I had earbuds, and I had this little Bluetooth module thing that I could use to stream music from my phone to this, and use some old ass, and accidentally walked into a skiff with that. So I had to fill out some paperwork and got from my boss. You can toss on that AP from your phone. Toss a password on that AP from your phone. The only thing I would say is, how secure is that implementation from your AP? I mean, technically, if you had, and maybe to Digital Warhead's point, if you had Wi-Fi tethering set up on your phone and you were close enough to, say, a restricted area of the company, so let's say you've got a skiff, or you've got a room where you're not supposed to have any of that stuff going on, I could set up my wireless access point on my phone, which is going to be sitting out in a locker outside of the room there. And unless there's some kind of shielding that keeps that from happening, I could take a classified system and, if it had a Wi-Fi card in it, I don't know why it would, but if you, had a Wi-Fi dongle, plug that into the USB, you could connect to the Wi-Fi access point outside the skiff. Instant incident right there. You got your all your crap there. But I understand the USB tethering thing. That makes sense. Yeah, people put weak ass passwords on their AP. Like for restricted areas. Totally understand. Had to do that as well with FedRAMP Azure project. Yeah, all tech had to be placed elsewhere. I'm thinking a lot about threat modeling, identifying threats. My problem is you can get real asinine with some of the threats, to the point where it's like, we get things from bug bounty folks, and it's when you go to think about it, and when you go to talk, when you read their write-up, of course they're bug bounty people, so they want the maximum amount of money possible. So they're thinking of the most convoluted, esoteric thing ever to go, this is a critical, pay us $45,000 or whatever. I'm just throwing numbers out there. Give us max payment because it's the worst thing ever in history. And then you're looking at it and you're like, they'd have to be sitting somewhere within a 30-foot range of my house. They would have to be sitting there waiting for me to do something on the network that would allow them to sniff whatever packets are available. There was some vulnerabilities about people being able to open garage doors, right? Being able to play back the radio signal, from that. So they'd have to be sitting somewhere within 30 feet of my house waiting for me to come out my garage door with their antennae running and, some kind of SDR. And right, indicates just have a 100-foot yard. See, some people in security be like, well, have a bigger yard. Don't use an automatic garage door opener and you're fine. I'm like, okay, great. That is a legitimate way of doing things, but not realistic, and I think that's where some of us forget those things. It's like, yeah, SIM swapping is a thing, but they can't do it at scale. If somebody's going to SIM swap, it's because they've identified you as a potential issue, and this on the scale of spear phishing, right? You are a potential link into your company, or you're a potential person, and so yeah, if you get SIM swapped, it's a one-off thing. Did I tell you about the guy who was stealing cars at the dog park, had all the tech and everything, thought he would get away with a high-speed car chase out of the park? Dude got picked up. Turns out he was in a stolen car. I had, when we lived in Seattle last year, I had heard that somebody had attempted to do something similar. The problem was the car was a stick, and the carjacker couldn't drive a stick. That's the new hotness, is having a stick. You can't carjack somebody. I have a Chamberlain garage door opener with security plus 2.0 rolling codes, and F0 can easily read and replicate. Right, and a determined attacker is going to be able to get in, and they're not going to do it with, if they really want to get into your house, one, they have to know that there's something in your house worth stealing, or there's something inside your network worth stealing. If they want to do a SIM swap on, the head of engineering, they're going to find that person's email or phone number. They're going to go through the process of targeting that specific person. Now, if they could do it at scale, 10,000 SIM swaps with 10,000 phones, there would be a major shift in how cellular communications works overnight. No, full stop. Right now, the reason that SIM swaps are so cool to talk about in terms of, SMS 2FA is bad, it's broken, and whatever, is because the SIM swapping stuff is what makes the news. It's what bleeds. When in fact, if it can't be done at scale, it's very high impact, but it's a very low risk, right? In 10,000 people in a company, your SIM swapping is going to be ones or twos. So it's less than 1%, less than 0.01% of your company is a chance of being SIM swapped. Now, depending on who that person is, or persons, if it's the head of development, yeah, it could be a bad thing. Could be a bad thing if you're using SMS 2FA. If it's, the person at the reception desk, maybe not so much. It depends on what your network controls are like. If you have a flat network and everybody has access to everything, the person at your reception desk there could be a potential bad thing. That's what I like about Mr. Robot. What seemed like a high-stakes situation to get only one company to pay up ended up turning out to collapse the entire world, basically. Spoiler alert. I've never seen the show. But yeah, so one of the things that I have to remind some people at work, and I have to remind some people in the real world, is we've talked about this with 1Password. My mother does not need a 1Password account. She does not need a 1Password app on her phone. She goes to 3 websites. If I tell her to change her Amazon password, or maybe she goes to Walmart.com. You don't need a yearly subscription to 1Password for 5 passwords. You can write them down on a book. You can write them down in a notebook. Something simple. And everybody's like, oh, you got to have a password locker. Who would write their passwords down? I can tell you who would write their passwords down. Somebody who doesn't have a lot of passwords. And how do you feel about browsers saving passwords? I'm not a fan. I think that the password lockers inside of those can be, don't you have to you can put a pin in for those just like you do with your 1Password? because even the connectors between like 1Password and your browser, I think Tavis found out those things aren't exactly completely secure either. So I don't use those integrations when I go to type my passwords, and I actually have 1Password, but I do save some passwords in my browser. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, what was that? BitLocker? I think I just saw something. BitLocker, 30 seconds. There's something in the news I just saw, and this is like, oh, there it is. So somebody had found BitLocker encryption broken in 43 seconds with a sub $10 Raspberry Pi Pico. Key can be sniffed when using an external TPM. When you're using an external TPM, right? Sometimes you have to type your computer's password in to unlock. Exactly. So, if you're using like Windows Hello or something like that, you use your fingerprint, or you use your face or whatever. I found this interesting article. They say BitLocker is one of the most easily accessible encryption solutions available, built into Windows 10 Pro and Windows 11. YouTuber Stack Smashing demonstrated colossal security flaw. Colossal security flaw. This sounds like it was written by AI. So that allowed him to bypass BitLocker in less than a minute with a $10 Pico, thus gaining access to encryption keys that can unlock protected data. After creating the device, the exploit took 43 seconds to steal the master key. Took advantage of a design flaw in many systems that feature a dedicated TPM. For some configurations, BitLocker relies on the external TPM to store critical information such as platform config registers and the volume master key. Some CPUs have this built in. For external TPMs, the TPM key communications across the bus with the CPU to send it the encryption keys required for decrypting the drive. He found that the communications lane are completely unencrypted on boot up. All right, so it was a host in the middle attack, using, sniffing the pathways between the LPC, the bus, and the CPU, and the external TPM. So by sniffing those, or watching, the ones and zeros with the signal analyzer, you can steal the encryption keys, which is very cool to do. And everybody's like, oh my God, he bypassed BitLocker. You got to have physical access to the box, which is always usually game over anyway. That's why I tell a lot of people devices like this. It sounds great. It's a onesie twosie thing. Somebody steals your laptop. Okay, great. They're going to get the information if they have this information right here. You can't, as far as I know, set a master password in Chrome. What it does do, what's your password for your computer. Right, yeah. I believe Firefox is the only browser to offer a master password to save passwords and encrypts the folder with it. Don't think you can do that in Chrome. Not a fan of browser saving passwords. Yeah. Yeah. Becomes less impressive once I learned that it's the external TPM. Yeah. I mean, it's if you've got a third-party TPM, well, the other thing is there's the design flaw. So somebody, when they were building BitLocker, they allowed the communication lanes between the CPU and the external TPM to be unencrypted at boot. So that's a problem with either the motherboard manufacturer or how things are being done. BitLocker has a lot of design flaws. Sure. If I'm, I would have to have this technology. I'd have to know what I'm doing. I'd probably have to have a lab. I'd have to have a signal analyzer or something like that. It's yes, you have a Pico. You can go grab a Pico and do that. I'm sure somebody's got the code somewhere to be able to bypass that stuff. I'm surprised this person hasn't mentioned something on, did I post that? Yeah, I put that in there. But this is not something where you should go to work and go, oh my God, we have to use something other than BitLocker. Why? Can they do it at scale? No. Can they, what does it require? Well, it requires you to, lose your laptop to somebody, so don't leave it in your car. I was just in Starbucks for 2 minutes and somebody broke into my car and did it. It's more like probably 10 because you ordered your latte as you were driving there. Yeah, until you can do it with an air-gapped box, not impressive. Now, yeah, exactly. And, things like rowhammer, which originally was like, oh, you can only do it, when you got physical access to the box and whatever. They did figure out how to do it in JavaScript. So attacks do update. So, things like rowhammer, they had to, put out new types of RAM that was rowhammer resistant or what have you. So one thing, and that's where we get with the media. It's like, oh my God, they bypass BitLocker. Great. It's a nice trick, but they can't do it at scale. They can only do it with onesie twosies. It's physical access, which is usually game over most of the time anyway. If you have access to a device, if you can take it apart and it's in cheap plastic, you can probably find a UART to put, to hook up on it. Once you do that, it's like your WRT54Gs back in the day. You solder a UART on there and you can dump the firmware, and then it's all game over. It's literally the type of trick you use to unlock a device that's password locked, right? I mean, yeah, it's that's the thing that I'm like, I have to start like really critically thinking more about vulnerabilities as they come in. These threats, this is a threat. It's a high impact threat when it occurs, but the likelihood of it occurring is slim to none. Very slim, right? So those are the things that I have to think about and have an opinion on. And that's the thing. It's like, what do I care about, right? And what do they care about? And that's where, threat modeling, I think, has to be kind of a joint effort. It can't just be a unilateral thing where a security person who wants, because if you get security people who actually consider this a legitimate threat, it really depends on what your threat model is, right? And I guess that always comes back to that. If you find this to be a legitimate threat, you have to wonder what's on the laptops or what's worth stealing in those hard drives. And maybe you don't put it on the hard drive. Maybe you don't store it there. So yeah, I don't know. Wow, I managed to stream of consciousness for jump boxes. Yeah, I found something cool the other day. Where is it? I was reading up on something called SSH3. I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but SSH3 is it's SSH over Quick, HTTP3, and it supposedly uses UDP. So Quick is the where is it? Holy crap! They went directly to the RFC 9000. Jesus. Quick is a secure general purpose transport protocol. This document defines version 1 of Quick. It's a handshake that combines TLS and I thought it was TLS and UDP. Yeah, there it is. Quick packets are carried in UDP datagrams to better facilitate deployment in existing systems and networks. So anyway, this is a SSH over UDP using Quick protocol. Of course, they do tell you it's not ready for production environment, but it has some pretty cool things in it. Like you can, where was it? It's feature rich. It does X509 certificates. The last option it gives you is password lock or password login. But one of the other things you can do is you can have a port 443 server running. Where is it? Use a SSH client. Where was it? It was like you can set a specific string to use for your SSH server. And it's written in Go as well, so it's not the best, but there was here we go. Yeah, your SSH3 server can be hidden. So if you need an SSH server, and I'm not saying you should do this for your production devices, but if you wanted to try it at home, you can set a random value that you can use to get to HTTPS 192.0.20 with this long bit here, and it will respond to a 404 to other requests. But when you log in with yourself, Go's been getting so much hate lately. Is that by design? I think Go and Rust are probably one of the few that are sitting there. It's equivalent of just installing Linux over a company locked device. Yeah. But I just found this interesting as a way, because if you wanted to maintain some anonymity with a long value like this, it's not going to pop up on like a dir buster or something like that if it's in the system, and you can create a server and bind it according to your long secret. So you could create a long value, a random value, and have an SSH server exposed to the internet, not like port knocking, mind, but in another way. So they says, placing may reduce the impact of scanning attacks, but may reduce the impact of scanning attacks, but will and must never replace classical authentication mechanisms. Right. Secret links should only be used to avoid your host being discovered. Knowing the secret URL should not grant someone access to your server. Use classical authentication mechanisms. Right. So, security by obscurity, but it shouldn't be the only thing obscuring your system. So use the long value here, but also use password logins. Yeah, it was just interesting to see that, this was possible. So anyway. Why do I want to sign into chat? Maybe. How long till this becomes widespread? I don't know. I mean, is it actively being worked on? Yeah, 2 weeks ago. So 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks. Yesterday. Okay, so somebody's updated this. I don't know. It might be fun to try to install this and see if I could get it to work. But yeah, they give you kind of demo here, showing you how fast SSH3 is versus SSH. I don't know, take that at a grain of salt. But the fact it runs over UDP is kind of cool. And uses TLS for connections, and uses, you can use OpenSSL to generate your keys or your certs. But yeah, it runs in Go, and you can compile it. Obviously Go can be cross-platform. You just have to have the right key tool chain for that. And yeah, deploying it tells you, enable password login, disabled by default, which is great to hear. And you can generate your public cert and your public private cert, or you could probably go to some place like Let's Encrypt and get you a specific SSL or TLS cert for that. Yeah. So, wow. One thing before I go, appreciate all of the lurkers, appreciate all of the people. Apologies, like I said before, if you got any ads while you were watching me. There we go. Patreon.com. Let me see if I can find and hunt up our Patreon account here. One thing is I had to create a different, let me see, a member. There we go. Is that it? No, that's not it. Wow. Thank you, Wolfgang. Fantastic. Thank you so much. First time chatter. Wow. You're not about to help me, get millions of people to watch my stream, are you? I appreciate you though. Thank you. Thank you so much for the bits. Thank you. Very much appreciated for following as well. No, I Tuesday I had to block somebody because they joined and then immediately started spamming things out, and I got the email. Usually I don't do that out of habit, but they can't do bots and stuff. So appreciate you taking the time to do that. What was it? Bitly. Google. Breaksec. Continue. I think we're gonna get dinner tonight. Let's see, links. Thought I had a Patreon as well. I don't use it a lot, and sadly, everybody who supports on our Patreon has been doing it since the podcast, which I appreciate them very much for doing so, because I haven't exactly figured out what to do with our with the Patreon. It's more of a tip jar. It always has been. I don't have a link to that shit. Damn. Boy, I suck. Yep. But yeah, I mean, whatever you want to do. If you don't want to, you support Twitch or what have you, join our Slack, join our Discord, and I'll hook up the Patreon link. And yeah, just know it's going for a good cause. Oh, by the way, one last thing. So this got added yesterday. So if you go to the B-Side San Diego page, which is happening March 30th, 2024, lovely SDSU campus. Let me see. Oh, who's at the bottom here supporting? Oh, so the BreakSec podcast and stream here is supporting at a bronze level. So we are a sponsor of the conference officially. If you want to come and join us, I'll be probably gooning, but yeah, there you go. Thank you for that, Wolfgang. We're sponsoring this, and it's going to be a lovely day in March to come and hang out and do that. Well, congratulations. I wrote a check, so it's not hard. I can write a check, but it's a good org and a lot of good people doing it, and they're trying to. I don't want to say try to be the ShmooCon of the West Coast, but we're going to have about 400 people at the event, which isn't a small B-Sides. And they have a code of conduct and everything, so it's good to support those folks. So their CFP is still going on, I think, so you can come and join and hang out. And oh no, submissions have already been done. Okay, my bad. So CFP is not happening. They probably should take the CFP offline. I'll go and let them know that. So. Hopefully you've already been notified if you had a talk. So yeah, congrats on being able to write a check. Yeah, everything's automated these days. It's great. Yeah, so good stuff. But it's good to be supporting them, and hopefully with that $1,000, they'll be able to do some awesome things, help with the villages, and improve and make it even better. So yeah, this weekend big game. Going to be watching the one team play the other team, and hopefully the one team that I don't want to win won't win, and we'll all come back here and be able to talk about other things. But I don't have anything else, so I'm gonna go and get ready for the weekend. And if you have any thoughts, comments, or concerns, please join the Discord. We will see you. Yeah, sorry, Digital Word. I'm not going to be able to make B-Side Seattle this year. I actually believe I will be in England if my passport comes back in time. So, yeah. But yeah, so have a great day. Have a great weekend. Is anybody online right now? Anybody want to raid somebody that is okay with that? I can go check to see who I follow who's online. Twitch.tv, BreakSec. See, anybody online? Pone College? Pone College. Okay. We'll go raid Pone College. Go show Pone College some love, and we will see you all on Tuesday, and hope you have a great weekend, and take care, be safe, and we'll talk soon. Bye, y'all.